Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today I finally figured out how to get like the bird's eye view in my new room setup. We kind of moved some stuff around, and speaking of which, if you hear any jingling, which I'm pretty sure you can right now, it is the dog. We took in my grandmother's dog after she couldn't take care of him anymore, which I don't want to get too into that, but he's in my room right now, so hopefully he'll be quiet, but who knows. So when the interactive Van Gogh exhibit came to Houston, my girlfriend and I went, and I got this book. It is Van, V-A-N space G-O-G-H Van Gogh, the-T-H-E complete, C-O-M-P-L-E-T-E paintings. And I've always loved Vincent Van Gogh. The Starry Night is probably my favorite painting of all time, and I really wanted to get this book. I haven't actually cracked it open and read it yet. I think it's more about his paintings rather than him and his history, but I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and open it up. A couple of pages. We have the title again, Vincent Van Gogh, Complete Paintings. Here we have, I'm assuming is one of his self-portraits. I know he had quite a few. You can see all of his paints, his brushes, his canvas, the back of it, and himself right here. And we have the title page again, and the two authors, Ingo F. Walther and Rainer Metzger. So first, we have his self-portrait, Paris Spring 1887, oil on cardboard, 42 by 33.7 centimeters. I'm not sure what this is right here, but it looks like it is at Chicago, in the Art Institute. So I'm gonna read this. Deserted, 2 chairs, each of them dominating the painting it appears in. Positioned at an angle touching the edges of the canvas, they have a monumental quality and seem to be saying, "Go ahead, sit down." Both chairs are unoccupied. There are only 1 or 2 objects on them, waiting to be removed or picked up by the person they belong to. Both of these chairs dominate the pictures, filling the painted space solid, palpable, yet they are intensely related to each other too. Like 2 panels of a, I'm going to butcher this word, diptych, that achieve new unity in being brought together. Juxtaposed, the chairs will be looking at each other, as it were, offering an invitation to talk, to confide, or else, back to back, they will have turned away from each other, as if they had nothing more to say and existed in different worlds. Now, at any rate, wrote Vincent Van Gogh to his brother Theo, letter 563, in December 1888, when he painted the 2 chairs, "I can tell you that the latest 2 studies are most remarkable. One chair made of wood and extremely yellow wicker, up against the wall on red tiles by daylight. Then Gauguin's armchair, red and green, a nocturnal mood, the wall and floor similarly red and green, 2 novels and a candle on the seat. On canvas, the paint thickly applied." The curious subjects Van Gogh was taking were furniture in his house at Arles, and represented the daily meeting place of Van Gogh and his guest Paul Gauguin. The 2 painters would sit talking about art and the affairs of the world, debating, quarreling, till things went up in their faces. Gauguin's sojourn was to be inseparably linked to the nervous breakdown from which Van Gogh was never fully to recover. A few days before we parted, Van Gogh subsequently wrote to A.E. Aurier, describing the nocturnal painting of Gauguin's chair, Before illness forced me to enter a home, I tried to paint his empty chair. The two paintings are his statement of the friendship of two artists. His own chair, simple and none too comfortable, with his dearly loved pipe lying on it, stands for the artist himself. It is meant just as metaphorically as the more elegant, comfortable armchair where Gauguin liked to settle. Everyday things, purely functional objects, acquire symbolic power. The eye of love sees the mere thing as representing the man who uses it quite matter-of-factly. We may well be tempted to recall the pictorial tradition that provided Van Gogh with his earliest artistic impressions. Dutch Calvinism sternly insisted on an iconographic ban that prohibited all images of the Holy Family except symbolic ones. The danger that the faithful might be distracted from their prayers by the beauty of the human form had to be avoided at all costs. Thus Christ could be represented by a vacant throne, the symbol of judgment and power. It was enough to prompt responses of awe and devotion. Van Gogh's unoccupied chairs pay respect to a tendency to avoid representation of the human figure. Gauguin is there, seated in his armchair, even if we cannot see him, according to this formula. The break in the two artists' friendship had become inevitable. When Gauguin decided to leave, he left the ruins of Van Gogh's dreams of an artist community in the South behind. As you know, I have always considered it idiotic that painters live alone. It is always a loss if one is left to one's own devices, Van Gogh had written to his brother, describing his longing for solidarity amongst painters. When he lost Gauguin, he also lost his overall perspective on life. Thus, we must see the two chairs as facing away from each other, expressing the irreconcilability of day and night, a polarity Van Gogh establishes in the very colors of the painting, in the very colors used in the paintings. Empty chairs had been a feature of Van Gogh's thinking since childhood. The memories that crowd behind this single image are connected with deep mournfulness, with thoughts of the omnipresence of death. After I had seen Pa off at the station and had watched the train as long as it, or even only its smoke, was still in sight, and after I had returned to my room and Pa's chair was still drawn up to the table, where the books and periodicals still lay from the day before, I felt as miserable as a child, and even though I am well aware that we shall soon be seeing each other again. Irrational though the 25-year-old's grief at the sight of the chair may seem, it was a constant tendency in Van Gogh to endow the most banal of objects with the properties of a memento mori. In 1885, when his father had died, Van Gogh arranged his smoking tackle as a still life, simple yet laden with significance. It is no coincidence that a pipe and tobacco pouch are on his own wicker chair in the 1888 painting. And we must not forget Charles Dickens, the English novelist, who, according to Van Gogh, approved a pipe as a tried and tested prophylactic against suicide. Dickens' own vacant chair had been made famous by an illustration in The Graphic. Edwin Drood was Dickens' last work. Vincent wrote to his brother, and Luke Fields, who had got to know Dickens through doing the little illustrations, entered his room the day he died and saw his vacant chair. And that is how it came about that one of the old issues of The Graphic carried the moving drawing, The Empty Chair. Empty chairs. There are a great many of them. More will be added to their number, and sooner or later there will be nothing left but empty chairs. Van Gogh's life's work as an artist remains ambivalent to a degree that has not yet been fully recognized. His paintings are notable for their immediacy, their sensuous impact. They draw their power from the painter's affectionate openness towards all things, towards man and nature. Still, the pleasure that he takes in a veritably naive identification with the world is continually overshadowed by profound eschatological intuitions, by apprehensions of transience and death. The hand that reaches out tenderly is retracted at the last moment because it has too often been hurt. There can be no doubt that Van Gogh learnt from experience. Indeed, His life precluded him from taking a straight and simple course. Yet Van Gogh naturally remained a child of his age. He grew up in a century when people for the first time saw their own existence as everything, with no transcendental support system, a century that produced many odd and even self-destructive characters. So this painting right here is Paul Gauguin's Armchair from Arles in December of 1888. It is oil on canvas and it is 90.5 by 72.5 centimeters. And it resides in Amsterdam in the Van Gogh Museum, the Vincent van Gogh Foundation. So this, I just love his style of painting. I like what they've talked about with like the empty chairs. I think that's really interesting. The Austrian art historian Hans Sedlmayr gives the title The Vacant Throne to the final chapter of his essay in cultural criticism, The Loss of the Center, Verlust der Mitte. I'm probably butchering that, I'm sorry. Sedlmayr writes, it must be added that the artists have been among those who suffered the most in the 19th and 20th centuries, the very people whose task it has been to render the fall of man and of his world visible in their terrible visions. In the 19th century, there was an altogether new type of suffering artist, the lonely, lost, despairing artist on the brink of insanity. It was a type that previously only occupied in isolated instances, if that. The 19th century artists, great and profound minds, often have the character of sacrificial victims, of victims who sacrifice themselves. From Hölderlin Goya, Friedrich, Rung and Kleinst through Damier, Stifter, Nietzsche, and Dostoevsky to Van Gogh, Strindberg, and Trockel, there was a line of solidarity and suffering at the hands of the times. All of them suffered from the fact that God was remote and dead, and man debased. Van Gogh's chairs constitute a metaphor of the crisis of the entire century, a metaphor that corresponds to the somewhat forced pathos of Sedlmayr's account. We cannot grasp Van Gogh's own Via Dolorosa, through to his fits of madness and final suicide, an isolation from the century he lived in. Van Gogh's ailment was the maladie des siècles, the self-fulfilling Weltschmerz that Sedlmayr attempts to explain by the loss of belief in God. In his History of Modern Culture and, Kulturgeschichte, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, Egon Friedel, albeit in rather more specific terms, moves in the same direction. It has been claimed frequently and emphatically that our existence may have become more quotidian and gray, but is the more rational, but this is a mistake. The 19th century was the inhuman century par excellence. The triumph of technology mechanized our lives totally, rendering us stupid. The worship of mammon has irredeemably impoverished mankind without exception, and a world without God is not only the least moral, but also the least comfortable that can be conceived. As he enters the present, modern man reaches the inmost circle of hell along his absurd and necessary path of suffering. Thus, it is only consistent if we write the history of Van Gogh's art and life less in a personal than a historical sense. The causes for his failure in life and for the subsequent rapid, all the more rapid, success of his cultural counterworld need not be sought in the untouchable torments of a solitary visionary. Quite the contrary, the reason lies in Van Gogh's tireless ambition for recognition, even if only in the image society has fashioned and could accept, the image of the outsider, the isolated genius. If there were ever a genius against his own will, it was Vincent van Gogh. I really like the opening of this book, actually. And this is the other chair that they were talking about. This is Vincent's chair with his pipe, Arles, December 1888. It is oil on canvas, and it is 93 by 73.5 centimeters. And it is at the National Gallery in London. So this was the foreword. This is the introduction to the book. So let's keep going. Chapter 1, The Making of an Artist, 1853 to 1883. And over here, we have Man Digging, The Hague, August 1882. And it is oil on paper on panel, and it is 30 by 29 centimeters. And it is in the Kuboso Memorial Museum of Arts in Izumi. I'm not 100% sure where that is, to be honest. But, I'd be interested. There's a lot of paintings I want to go see that are all over the world, so it'd be interesting to kind of look it up. And then we have the Carpenter's Workshop, scene from the artist's studio. It was painted at The Hague in May 1882. Oh, not painted, sorry. Pencil, pen, brush heightened with white. And it is 28.5 by 47 centimeters. And it is at the Kroller-Müller Museum in Otterlo. So the first chapter, we're starting off with the family. And this is 1853 to 1875. Vincent van Gogh was the son of a Dutch pastor, Theodorus van Gogh, and his wife, Anna Cornelia. Their first son was stillborn. A year later to the day, on 30 March 1853, another boy saw the light of day. This healthy son was given the names of the stillborn first, Vincent Willem, after his two grandfathers. So Vincent van Gogh's very first day of life was an ominous one. This curious fact need not have disturbed the parents too much, but ever since a veritable army of analysts have been responding to the lasting fascination of a child that was born on the anniversary of its death, as it were. And it may well be that Vincent's taste for the paradoxical grew out of this remarkable coincidence. His family lived a quiet life in the modest vicarage at Zundert near Breda in Dutch Brabant. Theodorus' father had been a pastor too. Indeed, so had generations of the Van Goghs. They were not strict Calvinists in belief, but adherents of the Groninger party, a liberal branch of the Dutch Reformed Church. Vincent was profoundly influenced by the hard-working and pious atmosphere of his parental home, and the eruptive violence with which he expressed himself strikes us as a necessary strategy for ridding himself of the cozy image of the world that was imposed on him in his childhood. And then down here we have Boy Cutting Grass with a Sickle, Eton, October 1881, and it is black chalk and watercolor, and it is 47 by 61 centimeters. It is at the Kroller-Müller Museum in Otterlo. Theodorus and Anna Cornelia van Gogh had 6 children. Vincent, the firstborn, was followed by Anna Cornelia, born 1855, Theo, born 1857, Elisabetha Huberta, born 1859, Wilhelmina Jacoba, born 1862, and finally Cornelis Vincent, born 1867. During his lifetime, Vincent was to keep close relations with only 2 of his siblings, Wilhelmina, to whom some 20 letters dating from late in his life were addressed, and Theo, his financial support, father confessor, and viewer of his pictures. The childhood and youth of the siblings seem to have been much what we would expect in a petite bourgeois household, and later, after a fit of madness, Vincent was too long for the unruffled happiness of his Zundert home. During my illness, I saw every room in the Zundert house, every path, every plant in the garden, the surroundings, the fields, the neighbors, the graveyard, the church, our kitchen garden at the back, down to the magpie nest in a tall acacia in our graveyard. So before I keep going, so this is a still life with cabbage and clogs. It is from Eton, December 1881, and it is oil on paper on panel, and it is 34.5 by 55 centimeters, and it is at the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. And then we have the still life with beer mug and fruit. It is also from December 1881 in Eton, and this is oil on canvas. It is 44.5 by 57.5 centimeters. This one is at the Wunderheit Museum in Wuppertal. And then we have the beach at Scheveningen in calm weather. It was painted at The Hague in August of 1882. It is oil on paper on panel. It is 35.5 by 49.5 centimeters. And it is at the Minnesota Marine Art Museum on a long-term loan in Winona. Then we have Dunes. This was painted in August 1882 at The Hague. It is oil on panel, and it is 36 by 58.5 centimeters. And it is in a private collection in Amsterdam. And then we have this last one here, which is Women Mending Nets in the Dunes. And it was painted also in August 1882. And it is oil on paper on panel. And it is 42 by 62.5 centimeters. And it is in the Collection Francois Automat in Montreal. In the last year of his life, longing for his childhood home never relaxed its grip on Vincent van Gogh. Vincent's father had no fewer than 10 brothers and sisters. Vincent's uncles, who lived in various parts of the Netherlands, emphasized their authority over their nephews. 4 of them played an especially influential role. Hendrik Vincent van Gogh, Uncle Hein, was an art dealer in Brussels. It was under him that Theo first ventured into the wider world. Johannes van Gogh, Uncle Jan, had been made an admiral. Vincent was to live at his home in Amsterdam for the best part of a year. Cornelis Marinus van Gogh, Uncle Cor, was also an art dealer and thus active in the field that, along with the pulpit, was the other traditional profession of the Van Goghs. Indeed, Vincent van Gogh, Uncle Cent, was also an art dealer. He was the young Vincent's godfather. He had made the most impressive career for himself, working his way up in The Hague from the most modest of beginnings and ultimately incorporating his shop into the gallery chain of the Paris art dealers Gruppel and C. There the young Vincent was to make his own first contacts with paintings and drawings. So, on this page over here, we have a girl in the street, 2 coaches in the background, painted at The Hague. It is oil on canvas on parcel, and it is 42 by 53 centimeters. It is in the Collection L. Jagli Honluser in Winterthur. And then we have Girl in White in the Woods. It was painted in August 1882 at The Hague. It is oil on canvas, and it is 39 by 59 centimeters. This one is at the Kröller-Müller Museum in Otterlo. And over here, we have Edge of Wood, painted in August 1882 at The Hague. It is oil on canvas on a panel. It is 34.5 by 49 centimeters. And it is also at the Kröller-Müller Museum in Otterlo. And then we have this little one down here, and that is 2 Women in the Woods, painted in August 1882 at The Hague. Or maybe not painted, but I think so. Oil on paper on panel, and it is 35 by 24.5 centimeters. And it is in a private collection in Paris. The family had found a respectable station in society, and the constant pressure to conform which was brought to bear upon Vincent must have felt all the more burdensome when his own career as an art dealer soon proved to have been a false start. In due course, the resigned 24-year-old was to write to his brother, "When I consider the past, when I consider the future, all the well-nigh insuperable difficulties, the vast and arduous toil which I feel no taste for, and which I, wicked I, would like to avoid, when I think of the eyes of so many people gazing at me, people who will know what the reason was if I am unsuccessful, people who will not level the customary reproaches because tried and tested in all things good and decent, in all that is refined gold, they will say by means of their expressions, 'We helped you, we were a light to you on your way, we did what we could for you, Did you sincerely want it? What is our reward? What is the fruit of our labor? When Vincent joined the branch of Goupelency in The Hague as an apprentice in 1869 at the age of 16, there seemed no obstacle to the kind of career the family council would have wished him. Gruppel was one of the leading firms in Europe and had recently begun its conquest of America. The house specialized in the reproduction of printed graphics, and leading engravers and painters worked for it. By 1869, the firm had 7 branches. Uncle Cent was a partner in it. From 1873, the firm was also Theo Van Gogh's employer. Vincent was subsequently remembered as a friendly, dependable employee. The reference written in 1873 by Mr. Terstig, manager of the branch in The Hague, was a paean of praise. When he was transferred to London in summer 1873, the move was doubtless meant as a reward. It was this transfer that finally set the stone rolling. Till then, statements such as, "Theo, I must seriously advise you to smoke a pipe. It does you good when you're in a bad mood, as is often the case with me," had been secret confidences. The inescapable loneliness Vincent was soon to experience in London was to accompany him his whole life long. He had fallen from the broad lap of his big family, and now nothing more kept him in the self-sufficiency of a predestined path in life. The tone of his letters to Theo became noticeably more melancholy. His appeals to the common fraternal spirit were quintessentially expressed in the image of a walk taken together. "How I would like to have you here sometime. What fine times we spent together in The Hague. I think so often of our walk along the Ridgewick Road, where we drank milk after the rain near the mill. For me, the Ridgewick Road is connected with memories that are perhaps the loveliest of all memories I have." The coziness of an idyllic walk was to accompany Vincent van Gogh's life as an artist, and became one of his recurrent themes. So over here, let me see if I can pull it up a little closer. We have Girl in Woods, The Hague, August 1882, oil on panel, 35 by 47 centimeters, and it is in a private collection in the Netherlands. And then we have Dunes with figures, The Hague, August 1882, oil on canvas on panel, 24 by 32 centimeters, and it is in a private collection in Bern. And then we have The Sower, The Hague, December 1882, pencil, brush, Indian ink, 61 by 40 centimeters, and it is in the P&N Foundation in Amsterdam. So I think that is a good place to stop for now. I'm going to take the black jacket and use it to mark my place. And then maybe, if y'all enjoyed this, I can do another video on it. Eat dreams and have a nice time.